Right, let's talk Super Slam and a Smash Palace. So if you're still yet to check out Smash Palace, I implore you do so, right? Because it is such a wonderful product. It is designed to improve upon kitchen table fun and UPF. So the Smash Palace kit, right, comes with some Mastery Pack Guardian stuff, but more importantly, it comes with the event deck. And the event deck is a huge lot of fun. And the best thing about it is it's not just designed for Mastery Pack Guardian and playing Crack Shuffle play with those packs. The event deck itself is pretty open, right? So yes, it definitely has a lot of great synergy with Mastery Pack Guardian and Guardians in general, but all of the effects are applicable regardless of what you want to play. So it is just a great thing to have if you're someone that enjoys kitchen table fun and UPF. So let's look at a few of the cards of Smash Palace before we get into the cube that I have assembled for Super Slam. So, Smash Palace event deck. We have stuff like the Crowd Roars Fight and Dominate the Competition. And again, these effects are really just open. So the next attack this turn gets +1, and you may target any opposing hero rather than your left and right as per the normal rules of UPF. As for Dominate the Competition, next attack gets Dominate, right? Clear cut, applicable to almost every class. Do some classes get a little bit more benefit of Dominate? Sure. But again, it is still applicable. But when it comes to Super Slam, we have a few different events that I do think actually synergize really well. We have Tremor of Anticipation. Until the end of turn, if any hero would create one or more tokens, instead they create that many +1 of each of those tokens and create a gold token. So essentially, Tremor of Anticipation works with all the boo and cheer triggers on our Super Slam heroes, right? As Tough Nut, when you go to create a toughness, if this is the current event in play, you'd create 2 toughness, and that is pretty nice. But then we also have stuff like Rally the Underdog, pick yourself up off the floor, and didn't see that coming, as a little bit of health interaction, and there is a decent chunk of cards in Super Slam that want you to be below everyone else's health for Revered, or above for Reviled. So Rally the Underdog, draw a card if you have less life than an opponent, instead draw 2. So you're still going to get some benefit out of this, but again, if you're juggling your health or at a losing point, right, Rally the Underdog then gets you an extra card. Pick yourself up off the floor, put an attack action card from your graveyard on top of your deck. If you have less life than an opponent, instead put it into your hand. And didn't see that coming, each hero who has more life than you discards a card. Then we have stuff like Easy Squeezy Bookie Syndicate, Visit the Winner Takes All, and Big Hits Big Applause as some wager and a Clash support. Now in Super Slam there are quite a few Clash cards, that's wonderful to see, but even when it comes to this wager mechanic, it's not a may, it's a must, right? So the cards force you to wager, which is just a nice fun time regardless of what you're doing, because both Lyth and KO have ways to trick your opponent or get nice and big. And then, of course, on the flip side, you have Tough Nut's tankiness, right? So, yeah, wager definitely seems like a fun mechanic to throw into the mix. And then lastly, speaking of Tough Nut, we have Air of Comeback and Arena Medic. And of course, these are applicable to anyone. They have a nice clause of effect if you have no cards in hand, and that seems pretty up Tough Nut's alley. So, Air of Comeback, you may put a non-attack action card from your graveyard on top of your deck. If you have no cards in hand, instead you may play it this turn from your graveyard without paying its cost. And then Arena Medic, gain 1 life, but if you have no cards, instead gain 3. So yeah, the event deck is pretty applicable to every single hero in the game, and that is wonderful design. So it truly is something to pick up if you haven't, if again you do enjoy UPF or, you know, kitchen table games, and you want to throw a little bit of chaos into the mix, a little bit extra fun, if you will. But when it comes to Super Slam, if you really want to get a bit chaotic with it, you can chuck some Prime the Crowds into the event deck and just have them essentially resolve when they're revealed. So the way the event deck works, start of each turn, you reveal 1 card, and then you resolve its effects. So Prime the Crowd is beautiful because it really is the type of card that would fit perfectly into the event deck. The next attack action card you play this turn gets +2, so as long as you're running the blue, that's not a super huge amount. But then we have the crowd cheers each revered hero, and the crowd boos each reviled hero. So essentially, everyone at the table gets a trigger, and that can definitely help a defensive turn or an aggressive turn. So yeah, if you did want to cater the event deck a little bit more to Super Slam, I would recommend sticking, 3-ish copies of the blue Prime the Crowd in there, and just again, have the ruling be, when it's revealed, it resolves for that hero. But on to the cube we have for Super Slam. So it can be considered somewhat a hefty amount of cards, right? So currently 288 cards in the cube, and of course I will put the link in the description if you want a copy of what cards I'm putting in the mix. But in saying the 288 card amount, it is majorly rares and commons. So, you can probably go scavenge them from your LGS, or if you've opened at least a little bit of Super Saiyan, you probably have a lot of this already prepared. Because for me personally, the main idea of this is to cater towards fun and an overall nice experience rather than, powerhouse cards like certain Majestics or even super rares that might make X Hero dominate the competition. Generally speaking, I've used almost every rare and common and at least 2 copies of each. There are a few that I think are wonderful inclusions, and I've bumped them up to 4. Again, the Prime, the Crowns are wonderful for this type of event because, again, it's a trigger for everyone. And then when it comes to equipment and super rares, while I've majorly pulled from Super Slam itself, I've thrown in some other cards to help improve the hero's game plan, but Super Slam itself was designed around no weapons, so feel free to take them out. As for super rares, I would say these are more of an optional inclusion. You don't need to run them. Again, they're mainly there just to amp up the fun power a little bit, right? But they're definitely not necessary. In saying that, though, super rares appear to be about 1 in every 2 packs, so I don't think getting a single copy of every super rare for Super Slam is going to be that difficult. So I am running 36 out of the 40 and 1 copy of each. Now, when it comes to the actual breakdown of the cards, essentially the way I've done it is it's 36 per type. So 36 brute cards, 36 generics, 36 guardian, but then 72 revered and reviled, and then back to 36 equipment, and then it'll be 36 super rares on top of that. The reason I've picked that number is it's nice and divisible by 4, but it also means that there's enough cards that once you're through whatever sorting process you go with, everyone will have a nice plethora of cards to be able to still play any of the 4 given heroes of Super Slam. Because for me personally, the idea of eliminating the value or beeline aspect of drafting just from packs helps aid in the fun and replayability with the fact that everything is open regardless of what cards you actually get, just to a different degree here and there. But let's go through it a little bit more in depth and how to actually utilize the cube. So again, the full card list will be in the description, and then it's up to you if you just want to take the main co-order cards, the commons and rares, you want to throw in the equipment, and you want to throw in the super rares as well. So again, when it comes to the contents of this Super Slam cube, it's 72 revered, 72 reviled cards, 36 brute, 36 guardian, 36 generics, 36 equipment, and 36 super rares as an optional extra inclusion. Now, why 36? Well, for the revered and reviled, right, that's 2 sets of 36 to make up the 72. But with 36 cards, it means with 4 people, that's essentially creating a pack of 9 cards each, right? So if you were to draft or deal this out, everyone would end up with the same amount of cards. If you're not playing with 4 people, you're playing with 3 or 2, you can again just use the rule of thumb, 9 per person, right? That said, the way to actually utilize the cube, we can again either deal it out or draft it. So each player receives 9 cards from each category, but 18 for revered/reviled. And then from there, you can either use the cards that you've just been dealt to construct a 30-card deck for whatever hero you choose, or you can proceed to draft. So for instance, if you were to draft, you would start with 1 section of cards, every player would get 9, and then you do the normal draft procedure, passing them around and taking a card out. Now, while this might seem as a overestimation of cards for what you actually need to run the cube, the reason for this again is so that in the end, every player will have 18 revered, 18 reviled, 9 brute, 9 guardian, 9 generics, 9 equipment to choose from, and again, applicably 9 super rares if you do choose to include them. This means that everyone will have 36 cards applicable to any of the 4 heroes to then make their 30-card deck with, meaning that everything is still open till the very end, and therefore, for me personally, maximizing the fun aspect out of it, while also still having some degree of knowledge test, right, drafting correctly, if you do want to go around and draft, because there is, again, set limited amounts of each card. So if you do want to try and beeline to X hero, you can do so, again, if you're drafting from the equivalent little pods of 9 cards per category. But then for anyone else at the table, if they still want to really play X hero, they will still end up with a high enough card count to do just that. For instance, if you were to compare it to sealed, you get 8 packs of sealed cards. So you actually end up with about 1 pack less for this cube than you would going to a normal sealed event, which I think is quite fair. Now, in terms of actually drafting from this cube, the order that I would recommend doing the categories would be you go through revered and reviled twice, right? So you go revered, everybody gets 9, and then you pass them around drafting from them. So revered, reviled, and then revered, reviled again. Then onto the generics, brute, guardian, equipment, and super rares. That way you can still formulate an idea of which hero you're trying to aim towards, but again, it's still open enough for you to pivot or decide you just want to play X hero for fun, right? And again, if you're not drafting, then it's just about dealing out the correct amount of cards from each category to each player. So for revered, 18, reviled, 18, generic 9, brute 9, guardian 9, equipment 9, and then if you do include the super rares, 9 as well, then you get your pile. sort through it, and you make your 30-card deck just like you would at a sealed event, and then you have fun, and you use the beautifully designed event deck from Smash Palace that, again, still has a lot of fun synergy with Super Slam itself. So, with that said, that's everything you need, right? So, link in the description for the card list for you to assemble it, hopefully somewhat clear-cut instructions on how to utilize it, and then hopefully you have fun, right? But with that in mind, with how the event deck has turned out, I actually wouldn't mind going back through older sets and maybe devising something like this if anyone would be interested in that. So do let me know, but we'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed. Yeah.